Hello and welcome to John Redmann, Power of Attorney. The November 6th election is just 2 weeks away, and there are several important decisions you will have to make, including proposed changes to the state's constitution.
And I'm Shauna Sanford. There are 9 constitutional amendments to consider. From controversial to complex, we're going to dissect as many of them as possible today and help get you prepared before you head into the voting booth.
Also on today's show, history in Louisiana has been made as the first African American has been named as Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court. Some called it a racially tinged power struggle within the court system, but after a unanimous decision by the High Court, Justice Bernette Johnson prevailed. We'll talk with one of the lead attorneys for Justice Johnson in just a few moments. But first, Shauna, the news.
All right, John. Well, as we mentioned at the top of the show, voters will face a laundry list of proposed constitutional amendments as they head to the polls on November 6th. The amendments deal with gun rights, term limits, pension issues, and property tax breaks. And as we were talking earlier, it's very important that voters pay attention to these constitutional amendments because this is a big deal. We're changing the state's constitution, which we have done quite a few times.
Absolutely. And frankly, when you're talking about constitutional amendments, that is the mother of all laws, frankly, because the Constitution is bedrock of all laws. All other laws wish they have the strength and power of a constitutional amendment. You can challenge other laws because they may be unconstitutional. If something has the blessing of the electorate who says we want to make a constitutional amendment, or if the legislature by a supermajority passes a constitutional amendment, it has the strongest effect of the law. The only thing more powerful than that is a constitutional amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Gun rights are at stake. Medicaid trust fund, homestead exemption, property tax exemptions. A lot of big things at play here, and we're going to have a good discussion about it today.
We are, and also on that ballot, the Crescent City Connection toll issue. That's a huge one. That's
near and dear to my heart. I cross that bridge every day, and I've been crossing that bridge for many years since I was in high school, since before that bridge was built. And I look forward to seeing how that is resolved. My personal preference is we've paid for that darn bridge. Nobody else pays to cross that bridge. But frankly, there's a website. Maybe we should mention it now. The PAR website.
Public Affairs Research Council of Louisiana.
Public Affairs Research Council. They don't take a side. They're not-for-profit, and they give the pros and cons. But I really want to have a discussion about those constitutional amendments. I think people need to be informed. You have that privilege to vote, that right to vote. Know the issues, then go cast your vote.
That's right, and we're going to get into those issues in just a few moments. On to our next story. Some are calling the latest ruling by a federal appeals court in New York a big win for same-sex couples. The federal law defining marriage as a union between a man and a woman was ruled unconstitutional. Now, this is an issue that is expected to reach the U.S. Supreme Court and very soon. So how is this going to affect that?
Well, obviously, the Supreme Court is going to have to weigh in on this, but the impact, the ramifications of this decision, it's not simply religious grounds. Many people of many different faiths have very strong opinions about whether or not you should be able to call yourself married if you are of the same sex. The economic impact is what's really at stake here. And that's a big issue. In this particular case, the IRS wanted to collect over $300,000 in estate taxes from somebody who, because she was her civil union, her marriage, if you will, to a same-sex partner was not recognized. And had she been allowed to be called married to her partner, there would be no such tax. And people in favor of same-sex unions say that's not fair. They were in all other aspects committed to one another, and they should be treated the same under the law. And there are other ramifications. You know, if you have someone who's sick and dying in the hospital, family members can visit, but non-family members might not be allowed to visit. Decisions about care, emergency medical decisions, are allowed to the spouse, but not to non-spouses. So there's plenty of ramifications. It's a big issue, and the Supreme Court's going to have to weigh in eventually. And this case may get the decision to the Supreme Court.
And we're going to continue to follow that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, coming up next, It was a case that involved race, gender, the highest court in the state, and garnered Louisiana the national spotlight once again. Well, when we come back, one of the attorneys for the newly named Louisiana Supreme Court Chief Justice Bernette Johnson will join us on set. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few moments.